of that learning, like learning everything you just said right there, that all happened in the second half of my career. My second half of the career was so different than the first half, but that's what helped me. Like I kind of put everything together. Like now I'm learning how this all works, and I learned this language. I appreciate this language now. Before I thought it was, academic or geek speak or whatever. I appreciate this language now, and I learned all that, and then I was able to sort of combine it all, and I got better at being able to speak to people about it, and then understand how to turn what we were doing into a story that a proper investor could make sense of.
You connect to, yeah.
Yeah, and that ultimately, that's I think my writing is an attempt to sort of marry both those perspectives, because they're completely not exclusive one another. It's all ultimately really, really similar. It's just the language that you use for the vocabulary of it. And so trying to get more polished and trying to be more proper was a big thing in the last 9 years for me. Like kind of getting away from that old way of talking about things. And then learning, and then you start learning, the first time I heard about factors, I said, oh, the first time I ever heard about anything similar to the idea of a factor was in speaking to a trader who was running stat arb kind of strategies, and said, I remember they said, and this was probably more than a decade ago, and they said something to me like, with stat arb, every time you do stat arb, what ends up happening is you find out later that you were exposed to something that you didn't model in the first hand. Like, oh, I'm doing all these trades. I think that I've got all this edge. And then it turns out that everything that I'm long is like super levered. Like their balance sheet is super levered. Or like there's some like factor that's going on under the hood. That's how I thought of factors first.
Right.
And then when I started to read on Twitter, oh, there's things called value and there's things called growth and momentum, and these are called factors. And oh, okay, this is there's a whole other world out here of this stuff that I didn't.
You had to translate some of that nomenclature for yourself, I suppose. I mean, you must have been familiar with momentum.
Yeah,
mean reversion. You just called it something else. I mean, you were like,
I just called it trend. I mean, I didn't even, I didn't use the word. I didn't use the word momentum, and again, it's like when we talk about topics like that, I'm very unsophisticated as far as my ability, like what's the difference between momentum and trend? Like I don't know the nuances between them. It's like what's the one that if the thing went up, if it's higher than the moving average, what's that? Or what's the thing that it's like, okay, it's went up this many percent and then it's went up again. Like, is that something different? I don't know exactly what the words for these different things are, but like the concept makes sense.
Yeah. And it's interesting how the way people perceive, when you think about a prop trader and somebody that creates a shop and it's a business and they're spitting out money based on these trades and taking all these risks. Like you said in the beginning, I don't know where these guys are actually investing their money, because investing is a different thing than the business. And when they go out and invest their money, they're actually looking around for this type of stuff, right? Or they end up a lot of times putting their hard-earned money and a lot of it, if not most of their wealth, ends up going into traditional large AUM type strategies, right?